So hi, Minnie Gibson here again with Sunflower Transitions, continuing on segment 2 of Daring to be Vulnerable. I mentioned in the previous segment of my talk around making lemonade out of lemons that sometimes the hardest thing is to allow oneself to be vulnerable. And I also talked about what do we do with our mistakes. I have learned that mistakes are often just another opportunity to do things again, maybe learn from the previous attempt, and maybe even take away a learning that could never have come if things had gone smoothly the first time. So when life hands me lemons, I've come to realize that I have one of two conclusions, at least one of two conclusions, or two conclusions, or maybe more conclusions, but at least one or two. The first thing is that, I can choose to get very negative. And that, to be honest, is often the most natural response. It's the reptilian response. That's the first thing that sometimes comes to my brain, is to get negative. It takes a whole lot more intentional thought to actually change my mindset about the situation or the event or the challenge or the frustration. As someone that is recovering and recovered quite well from a concussion injury, considering how that particular journey began, it's sometimes a little hard to even go back and imagine that that was really me in those 3.5 years of living in a body with a brain that didn't seem like it belonged on my shoulders, in a body that sort of seemed like it was disconnected from my personality and who I was and who I am, and very tempting some days to just want to live in that place of negativity, because really it hurt. It wasn't fun. It was isolating sometimes, even though I had lots of support. And I do realize that there are many people that go through that brain injury journey that really go through it alone. People maybe around them, even family, may not understand fully or even slightly what's going on in that person's brain, and particularly those symptoms that are invisible, all the injuries that are invisible. And so trying to be intentional sometimes, whether our brains are injured or broken, even if we have a healthy brain, it often takes a whole lot more real thought and self-control to move quickly to changing one's mindset. An example that presented me with is this whole idea of change. And certainly in the 3.5-year journey from injury to being able to transition back into a classroom or into my coaching business, change did not come quickly. There was a lot of letting go, a lot of grieving that had to happen, a loss of mobility, a loss of independence, a loss of my vocation and my love of the work I do for many years, thinking I maybe would never even return to life as a life coach or as a teacher, workshop facilitator, which I absolutely love to teach. And so a lot of letting go and losses that had to happen before I could actually navigate, transition into a change, a new normal. And in every challenge that we experience, there's often three things that come with that challenge. There's often the crisis of whatever has happened. There may also be the risk or a risk of some kind that may be a part of that change or situation that has interrupted my norm as I know it in the moment. But there's also in that change an opportunity. Sometimes the opportunity presents itself looking more like a problem. This is a real pain that I'm going through this now. How come this had to happen now? What am I supposed to do with a brain that doesn't work? What am I supposed to do if I can't work and pay my bills? This is really not convenient that this should be happening now. I mean, really, the risks are huge here. Maybe loss of income, maybe loss of a home, maybe loss of a relationship. There are so many risks that often come with change and with an injury that changes a person's ability to be fully functioning or able to navigate their environment or their world in a way that appears normal. I don't know about others of you out there who are working with a concussion or a mild brain injury, how you have navigated your world through this change. For some of you, I know that navigation just looks like literally showing up each day in a body, literally in a body with not much else going on. And that's okay. That's how I was for quite a while. And many of those first early days, I remember being incredibly frustrated as I went for appointment after appointment with specialist after specialist and doctor after doctor telling me this was all in my head. It's just anxiety. You need to forget about your symptoms and just go home and get back to normal. Easier said than done when the brain is not actually functioning properly. And no one's listening. No one's actually taking the time to go further into exploring. Well, maybe, just maybe, this person is not making this up. And just because we can't see inside of their head does not mean that there's nothing wrong. So in our attempts sometimes to deal with change, there can be a lot of risk, a lot of crisis. It was very critical to me that I be able to get well. I did not want to live as a victim. I did not want to live dependent for the rest of my life. I did not want to lose my home. I did not want to have to think about what if I can't work at what I love to do anymore. So let me just take a pause there and be right back. So the crisis often presents as automatic negative thoughts. Automated, I've got automated in my brain here today. These automated negative thoughts are usually around a problem or a setback that's interrupted our day or our life or our ability to be who we know ourselves to be. Risk. When we have automatic negative thoughts, when I was going down the road and still do some days of just these automatic negative thoughts popping into my head. See, look, you'll never get this video thing down. What are you trying to do anyways? I mean, really, what are you trying to do here? Let's just face it. You are not going to be able to do this. It looks unprofessional. It looks tacky. Just give up. Cancel, cancel, cancel. That's basically what I have had to start telling myself when I hear those thoughts coming into my head. No, just wait a minute here. Stop. Choose to make a different choice around how you will frame what is happening. So I want to just share with you actually the process that occurred as I was trying to make the first 3 videos that I posted last week. It began as a very fun thing to do. I planned out with my friend Faith that we would do 5 little vignettes. My proper name is Vinette. I often used to be called Vignette. And so it appealed to me, actually, this idea of having little vignettes do some little vignettes. The idea of doing them on video was not so thrilling to me. But knowing that most people now are playing around with these live videos, and it's one thing to put these little posts up, but really people want to see what does she really look like on any given day. And some days, as you may see in the future, not so well put together, or words don't come easily. Sometimes I lose my train of thought in the middle of a sentence. It's even been known that I would stand deer in the headlights looking out at the group that I might be speaking to for a few minutes while my brain tries to catch up with what I am trying to communicate. It's been a common event to go for an appointment, a medical appointment, and have the chiropractor or someone say to me, "So Vinnie, turn over on your left side." And I hear the instruction and I stay in the same position. And the person says, "Vinnie, turn over on your left side." And I say to them, "I heard you." But my brain is going, and maybe 2 or 3 minutes after they actually give me that instruction, I turn over. Now, part of my particular brain injury was to lose cognitive function. When I say lose, my cognitive function slowed down to about a snail's pace. There was a period of my recovery when I was receiving speech therapy and cognitive therapy. I think that was about 6 months into my recovery journey. And I still remember being assigned, as part of my therapy, 5 or 6 sentences that I had to take home, and I had to time how long it would take to read each sentence and record my time. The first 3 months of my treatment, I could get through a sentence in maybe 20 minutes. And to do 6 sentences, it might take me over an hour, and I would need to rest 15-minute breaks in between between sentences. So in fact, it would take more than an hour sometimes to get through 6 sentences and then be absolutely exhausted. So crises can be scary. Crises can immobilize. The fear can be numbing. Thinking about the risk of never being well or of being that way for a very long time and maybe never fully recovering. And again, I realize that is the situation that many survivors find themselves in, of living with much more serious repercussions than myself in the long term. I just want to take a bit of an aside here and just interject by saying that I think one of the myths that we still have about brain injury is that, well, when the person is in a coma or when they are physically unable to do things that a normal person would do, a normally functioning person would do, then yes, obviously they are injured significantly. But you see, there were some outward symptoms that I showed in the early days that, in fact, yeah, something wasn't right. I was told that I had a deer in the headlights look for quite a few weeks in the beginning. But as my injury began to progress, my recovery began to progress, should I say, the outward appearance of the injury actually became less obvious. And the only really outward sign, other than my speech being very ha 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 ha, was actually the fact that with any sound, no matter how small, my body would fall off to the left, literally falling over, not able to contain myself in an upright position. It was a bit of a party trick for quite a while, but not so fun to experience internally.